Okay, so again, this webinar is called Systemizing Digital Citizenship. And if that's the webinar that you were trying to get to, congratulations, step one, you are here and we are so happy to have you here. I am Lindsey, and I'm joined by my colleague and my partner in crime, my primary partner in crime, Dr. Kristen Mattson. And Kristen and I are managing partners of Edvolve, which delivers professional development and consulting services totally focused around digital citizenship education. And tonight, we are really excited to share with you about a digital citizenship framework that we co-authored in 2021 and just released in the end of September. So it's a relatively new resource. We're excited to share with you and talk about how this framework can really help systemize digital citizenship in your organization. Now, before we get started really looking at the framework, I'd love to take a couple of minutes just to tell you a little bit of background about Kristen and me and about how we came to actually develop this framework. So go ahead and advance to the next slide, Kristen. So I'm going to start by backing up about a decade. About 10 years ago, Kristen and I did not know who each other was, but we were following a pretty similar trajectory. We were both educators and we were both enrolled in doctoral programs. And because of our respective jobs, Kristen being a library media specialist in Illinois, and myself, I was a technology integration specialist in the Teachers College at Arizona State University. And because of our respective roles, we both decided to focus on digital citizenship for our doctoral work and our dissertation. We did not know who each other was at the time. Because at the time, there were so few people really studying and pouring into digital citizenship, Kristen and I became familiar with each other's work actually prior to actually meeting each other in real life. So about, fast forward a few years and we finally did meet in person. And over the next couple of years, we sort of collaborated on a few presentations, collaborated on a few different ideas. And then that brings us to 2020 when we decided to really get serious and do some work together. Now, so we do our work through this consulting entity called Edvolve. We realized that over the years that our vision about not only digital citizenship, but the way digital citizenship is taught, our vision for that is just so similar. So we paired up and that's what sort of brings us here together tonight in this webinar. So now, as we do our work in this space of digital citizenship, our collective goal is really to transform digital citizenship education. When I say transform, what I really mean is starting at the very basic of the definition of digital citizenship. We always hear, or we typically hear, digital citizenship described as the safe and responsible use of technology. And while this isn't an incorrect definition of digital citizenship, it doesn't quite capture the fullness of what Kristen and I really believe digital citizenship can be, which is a really student empowering mechanism to thrive in the digital world. So we prefer this definition, which is about the goal of digital citizenship education, really preparing students with the skills they need to fully participate academically, socially, ethically, politically, and economically in our rapidly evolving digital world. Some other things that we mean when we say transform digital citizenship education is we'd love to see the teaching digital citizenship move away from standalone lessons and move more into an integrated approach. We'd love to see digital citizenship that is sometimes taught through an assembly or through, primarily through Digital Citizenship Week. We would love to see schools and districts build a culture of digital citizenship where things like policies and discipline and acceptable use and all these pieces kind of roll together to support a really positive culture of digital citizenship. We would love to see the focus of digital citizenship move away from risk management, where we're really just protecting and monitoring kids online. And we'd love to see that move towards creating or promoting positive decision-making and empowering students to make decisions as they navigate the digital world. And finally, we'd love to see digital citizenship education where teachers don't feel like they have to have all the right answers, but rather they can be facilitators of learning and learn right along with their students, as we all are somewhat new to navigating new and innovative technologies, new platforms, and new technologies every single day. Now, as we've done our work, so that's really our vision. And as we've done our work, you can imagine that Kristen and I, we talk to educators, including teachers and administrators and other LMSs and other technology integration specialists all the time. And what we've heard over the past few years are comments like, you know, we're right there with you. We want digital citizenship education. We have the same vision for that as you all do. But we've heard so many challenges, like we're not really sure what digital citizenship always entails. In other words, there are so many terms and buzzwords thrown out there: digital citizenship, digital literacy, internet safety, online safety, media literacy, you know, you name it. There's a gamut of terms that are out there and used, and people have told us that they're struggling to understand how this puzzle all fits together. We also hear, of course, the time challenge. There's so much to teach. When do I fit this in? We've heard the challenge from so many people that, you know, this is new and this isn't something that was included in my teacher preparation program. We've not had professional development on it. So I don't really feel a sense of confidence teaching digital citizenship to my students. And finally, we've heard from educators that even when they are teaching digital citizenship and they've found some good materials, that the lessons aren't always deep enough. Sometimes those lessons are scratching the surface, or sometimes those lessons aren't grade level specific, and they'd love something to go a little bit deeper and more specific to the different grade bands of students K through 12. And so that's really what brought Kristen and I to discover a need for a framework like this to help schools and districts coordinate. When I say systemize, I really mean coordinate an effort, a coordinated effort around digital citizenship education, including curricular efforts. So, the last thing I'll share with you before we actually take a look at the framework is that this framework, when we wrote it, the goal was really to define the what of digital citizenship. In other words, what should students be learning? What are those pieces of knowledge and what are those skills that students need in a comprehensive digital citizenship education? What this framework isn't, is lesson plans. So it tells you what, but it doesn't share how. And we'll get into that in a little bit, in a few more minutes. Really quickly, I know you probably don't care the process that we went through to create the framework, but this slide is up just to show you that it was a long process, a 7-month process. We did bring other people in. We had peer review. we align to standards, and so forth and so on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a quick look at the framework itself. I'm going to have Kristen screen share the framework just so I can walk you through some basic navigation, and then we will put the link for the framework in the chat so that you can explore it on your own. Okay, so this is the framework, and you can see that the framework is 32 pages long. So it's pretty comprehensive. I'm going to have Kristen navigate to the at a glance page. And this is where the real meat of the framework starts. You can see from this at a glance page that we have organized digital citizenship into 4 major strands: digital safety, media and information literacy, digital well-being, and social responsibility. And as you scroll past the at a glance page through the document, you'll notice that from there on, it's color-coded. So when you're in turquoise, you're looking at the digital safety information. When you're in gold, you're looking at digital well-being, and so forth. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what is in a section. Go ahead and navigate to the digital safety section. The digital safety section has, actually go up a page, Kristen, real quick, to page 8. There you go. Each section starts with what I like to think of as a cover page for that section. So here, there's just a little blurb that kind of contextualizes digital safety. Beyond that, what you're going to see is the real meat of the document. Pages 9, 10, and 11 are then the indicators. So when we look at this page, we can see the very first thing on this page is enduring understanding number 1. And it says laws, rules, and social norms govern digital spaces. So when students really grasp this enduring understanding, we think the indicators then of success are there right below that in the 3 bullets, starting with respect boundaries that govern digital spaces. We know, though, from the educators we've spoken to, that what they really need and desire in digital citizenship education is for that grade level breakdown. So we've taken those 3 bullets and we've broken them down into what we call mini grade band indicators. So you can see down below, from pre-K 1 all the way through grades 9 through 12, we have indicators of success that are more grade level specific. So you can see right there at the basic level, pre-K 1 is just to name and follow classroom technology rules. And it gets more specific, more developmentally and curricularly appropriate as the grades advance. Then over to the right, you'll see sample guiding questions. And the sample guiding questions are not a one-to-one correlation to the grade level indicators. And they're not meant to be a prescription for how to teach the grade level indicators, but they are intended to sort of inspire your creativity and your thinking about how these indicators might look instructionally. So for this particular strand, digital safety, you'll see that there are 3 enduring understandings. So we went through the first one. When Kristen goes to the next page, you'll see enduring understanding number 2. And then as she advances to the third page, or to the page 11, you'll see enduring understanding number 3. Finally, the last page of each section has 2 components. The first component is a short list, if you will, a sampling of technology skills that support the indicators in the digital safety strand. So this list, this bulleted list, is not meant to be comprehensive in any way, but it's meant to give you an idea that if you're looking at those digital safety indicators, these are some of the technology skills that can kind of go hand in hand while you're teaching digital safety. Finally, you'll see a list of national standards or competencies that align with the digital safety strand. And here you'll see the ISTE standards for students, and you'll see the social studies C3 framework. But if you scroll down and you look at the media and information literacy strand, there's many more standards that have been aligned to this framework. It's been aligned to the American Association for School Librarian Standards. It's been aligned to Common Core ELA. It's been aligned to the National Health Education Standards. Even we have a Common Core math practice here. And there was one more. Oh, it's also aligned to the social justice standards. So you'll see those standards at the last page of each section. Kristen, what am I forgetting that they need to know about the framework in order to navigate it?
I think you kind of covered the navigation fairly well. Do we want to drop the link and give them some time to explore?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So Kristen's going to paste this Teach Dig Cit link right in the document. When you get there, click right on that gold button that says download the framework. It's not going to ask you so much. It's not even going to ask you for an email. So you just click it and it opens right up. And we're going to put about what did we say? 3 minutes on the clock?
3 minutes on the clock. Yeah.
Let's put 3 minutes on the clock, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about how we can use this framework to really systemize digital citizenship education.
Yeah, as you look, I would encourage you just to, some of you in the chat mentioned that you teach digital citizenship, or you're thinking about it, or you're planning for it. I'd encourage you, as you scroll through this document, just to look for things that you've noticed that you maybe already do and you do really well, and maybe look for things that you're like, wow, we hadn't even thought about including that in digital citizenship, just if you need a focus. Okay, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to get sort of an overview feel of what is involved in the framework and the depth of what is there. What we want to do now is share some ways that we have envisioned and worked with different districts and organizations to actually utilize this framework to help systemize digital citizenship education. Like Leanne was saying before, we hear from a lot of districts that make some efforts, events during Digital Citizenship Week, a handful of lessons, maybe in an advisory classroom, but really making sure that skills grow from PK through 12th grade, just like teaching reading, just like teaching mathematics, has to have a bit more of a plan. So how can we use this framework to develop that plan and implement a plan? I think first and foremost, I want to start at sort of the very highest levels of most district organizations, and that's at that high curricular level. So whether you're a curriculum leader, teacher leader, administrator, and you sort of have a say in what is being put in front of students every day and what skills students are being asked to learn, you might use this document to create a curricular gap analysis for your organization. And that was sort of the teaser I gave before I started that 3-minute timer, right? Take a look at the document and ask yourself, what skills are already being taught in our curriculum? And it might not be a skill that's taught in a quote unquote digital citizenship class or lesson. You might find that some of your media and information literacy skills are being taught in the library or being taught in the ELA classroom. And really, these skills should be happening across your building. They shouldn't be owned by a singular person who kind of has to teach it all. So looking at what skills are taught and are already supported in our curriculum and where are there some gaps within the things that we are teaching? In most of our conversations with districts, they say, you know what, we're doing this internet safety thing pretty darn well. We're maybe kind of touching on the media and information literacy. And we know SEL is important. We're definitely talking about social and emotional learning with our students, but we hadn't thought maybe about the technological components of that and the digital health and wellness pieces. So looking at opportunities for success can be helpful. Now, in doing that curricular gap analysis, using the higher level, sort of enduring understandings and indicators as a way to identify what is missing, remember, really should be happening across PK through 12th grade. All students should be recognizing and avoiding misleading information in an age-appropriate way. So avoiding misleading information obviously looks a lot different for a first grader than a 12th grader, but all students should be having the opportunity to practice all of these indicators throughout their PK through 12th grade education. Some additional things to think about as we do sort of a curricular gap analysis is sort of how we're talking about these topics. Are we simply, telling students things like, you have to create a safe password, and then we have somebody sitting in the tech office creating passwords for kids and handing them out to kids? Are we simply giving lip service to some of these things, or are we actually empowering them with the skills and finding opportunities for them to actually practice the skills, make mistakes, because they will, learn from those mistakes and grow? We also want to think about, to what depth and extent are we teaching these skills? Are we doing one little, misinformation lesson in the library during Unit A of 3rd grade, and we're never talking about misinformation again? Or are we spiraling back to these things every time there's sort of an opportunity? Again, I'm a huge believer in opportunities for practice. We can say be nice online to kids all that we want, but until we're putting them into spaces like digital discussion boards in our Canvas pages or in our Google Classrooms, and really modeling for them and showing them what does a respectful dialogue look like, giving them feedback on that respectful dialogue, and then giving them the chance to grow in that, we aren't doing them a whole lot of good by just telling them to be nice online. Some of you may wish to consider whether or not we're currently assessing student learning in some of these areas. Some of these areas just simply aren't accessible. And I'm a firm believer that not everything needs to be evaluated on a test or looked at in a graded sort of format. But do we have opportunities built into our entire PK through 12 system where we're doing some basic checks and going, okay, do our middle schoolers really have all these things that we thought they were supposed to get in elementary school? Are our students leaving high school knowing X, Y, and Z? Do we have any opportunities just to sort of check that data? Might be also important as you do this sort of curricular analysis is to look at who owns which work within your organization. Guidance counselors are often doing a lot of work with social and emotional learning, as well as our health teachers, and taking people who are already sort of dabbling in these spaces and saying, you are doing a really good job with social and emotional learning. Let me empower you with a little bit of professional development that's tied specifically to digital citizenship and digital health and wellness, and you're going to be able to take that work you're doing so much deeper. But until we identify kind of who's who in our organization, it's hard to empower them with that work. Now, Leanne mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that we really want to build this culture of digital citizenship. She and I are actually collaborating a little bit right now with a technology company who's not to be named, but they are very much in this mindset that, you know, the industry is really pushing like heavy surveillance of kids. And as a company, we feel a little weird about like heavy surveillance of kids. And those are conversations that should be happening in your district. Are we just simply purchasing up softwares that are scrolling through our kids' devices and sort of tattling on them to parents and administrators? Or are we getting ahead of that and talking to kids and practicing with them and using some of the technology tools as sort of those last and final results, instead of relying on the technology to do that heavy work that we should be doing, which is building the filter between their ears. So how do our acceptable use policies sort of align with the things we're doing in curriculum? What about discipline? If we're talking to kids and saying, you know what, mistakes happen, it's okay, we're gonna learn, we're gonna grow, we're gonna practice. And then the minute you have a third grader that Googles butts and he ends up in the principal's office and his mom gets called, what we're saying and what we're doing just don't align. So thinking about that whole system is really, really important. You might also utilize this document if you are in a position where you're delivering professional development, suggesting professional development, or supporting colleagues in any way, shape, or form. You could use this document to help you determine professional learning needs. I think it could be a great self-assessment tool. Let's go through this document and just sort of mark up, as a 39-year-old woman, what am I comfortable with and what do I need to learn more about? Because I'll tell you what, there's stuff in that document that I could totally learn more about. And it is really, really hard to teach kids if we ourselves don't feel comfortable with the skills. So use it as a self-assessment tool. I'd encourage you, thanks Rachel, I gotta keep claiming those 30s while I can, only a few more months. We also have to think about professional learning, not just for our teachers. I worked in a district a few years ago that went one-to-one with Chromebooks, and we made a very massive mistake by forgetting about supporting a lot of really important adults in our organization, like our teacher assistants, who suddenly had to help students with special needs turn in documents through Google Classroom. And guess what? We never gave our TAs any sort of training on Google Classroom. Oops. So how do our administrative assistants, our TAs, our other sort of non-certified staff that interact with kids on a daily basis, answer questions from parents, do they have the digital citizenship skills they need to support that culture you want to create? Again, having a self-reporting feature could work very well. And then we love, you know, PD that isn't just one size fits all. So being able to create sort of personalized paths of learning for people in your organization through a combination of, you know, maybe webinars like this, different online, you know, resources and tools, and then even formal classes. The next opportunity I think that people have is for classroom teachers to start looking for content area connections between what they're already doing in the classroom and what some of the goals of digital citizenship education are. Before I was a high school librarian, I was a middle school English teacher. I look back at my years in middle school English and I feel like I owe some kids an apology. You probably feel that way about the early parts of your career too. But essentially, when I was teaching 8th grade English, I had a unit of instruction that was all about friendly letter writing and business letter writing. And even back in 2005, the kids were kind of rolling their eyes at writing letters. Really, the goal wasn't to write letters. The goal was to write for different audiences and different purposes. And when I think back now, and if I could, teach some of those skills again, writing for different audiences and different purposes can look like, how do I properly write emails to teachers in the building? How do I formally address my parents? How do I write online reviews? Yeah, all these great things where we can have kids writing for a purpose. And we're not only hitting those ELA skills that are really important, we're also hitting on some of the digital citizenship skills as well. So we looked at the document that has sort of all the standards listed. And our goal in pulling these standards was to show people that digital citizenship doesn't fit in a silo. It fits everywhere and it's already in your standards. You just have to pay attention and look for it. So where can we embed digital citizenship within content areas? As a math teacher, why not bring in a mathematical meme that talks about, hey, if Jeff Bezos gives X amount of dollars to everyone in the world, hunger will be solved, poverty will be solved. And have kids look at that as an information literacy exercise that has to do with mathematics. We can do these things everywhere. Once we find opportunities within our curriculum, like writing for different audiences, like a healthy relationships unit in a health classroom, we don't necessarily have to add more onto our plates. We can simply evolve or rethink what we are already doing by updating some of the examples or questions or scenarios that we give to kids. In a social studies classroom, we used to do a debate about whether or not a principal should be able to search a child's locker. And of course, we looked at the Supreme Court cases around privacy and security. And kids really kind of just stopped having an opinion and stopped caring about a principal searching their locker. But when we changed the scenario, when we changed the question, and we started looking at whether or not employers should be able to, read the emails of the people in their company, and we started looking at privacy in a different light, kids were so much more bought in. We can use these digital citizenship skills just to add depth to a topic. So yes, we talk about healthy relationships in middle school PE and health class, but let's talk about healthy relationships in a digital world too. We can also look for opportunities just to include more skills practice. So I don't have to necessarily write a 5-paragraph essay. Can I do a little online chat like we're doing here? Not only looking at content, but practicing the skills of engaging in dialogue online. And anytime we approach colleagues, or even we think for ourselves, like, oh my gosh, my day is so full. Where does all of this fit? How am I going to teach all of these things? Sometimes it takes someone to look at the plate and go, you know what, it's okay to take that off the plate. So there are some things that you might see within your curriculum as you start taking a closer look that can just disappear and go away. Now at the classroom level, teachers can start to think about units of instruction through some of these sample guiding questions. So how do authors and creators hide meaning in their content? I'm looking at this sample guiding question, grades 4-5. We do that with novels all the time, right? The curtains aren't blue, they're a symbol of something else. But how can we then bring in examples of memes, of viral videos, of advertisements, and look at how authors and creators of all sorts of media hide meaning in their content? And again, the framework doesn't necessarily provide you with materials or lesson plans, but we get questions from folks all the time that say, hey, what do you think about like common sense media? And have you ever heard of Google's Be Internet Awesome? And Leanne and I go, yeah, these are really, really high quality materials, and they're great. They're really, really great if we choose them with purpose. And so instead of doing Common Sense Media lesson number 3, just because it's January 17th, let's pick Common Sense lesson number 3 because it helps students understand how authors create and hide meaning in their content. So we can, use this framework to launch student inquiry, to get discussion going in our classroom, or I think most importantly, to serve as that anchor as teachers start, looking for free resources to utilize in their classrooms. I think it helps provide purpose for why you would choose resources when you do. All right, we have a lot of folks in this room that have experiences, much bigger than the experiences that Leanne and I have. And we are huge believers that the genius is in the room. So we wanted to give a little bit of time for all of you to kind of talk with one another and debrief and share your thinking, since we've been doing a lot of the talking. Leanne, do you want to set them up for the breakout discussion?
Absolutely. So we have a rather small group tonight, but I'm thinking if we divided into 2 breakout rooms, so there were about 4 people in each one. And go ahead to the next slide, Kristen. We have 5 questions for you to consider. And it's not that we would expect you to discuss all 5 of these questions, because we're only going to give you about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, but rather we give you 5 ideas for question starters that can kind of seed your conversation with one another. We also have a Padlet to record your key ideas so that we can sort of get a glimpse into both conversations of both rooms. So the same 5 questions that were just on the screen are here on the Padlet. And if you want to add some key ideas from your discussion, you would simply just click the plus sign underneath. You can write a headline and then go ahead beneath there and type out your key idea, even link to something or add a photo or a document if you want to. And then we'll come back and we'll debrief and we'll take any questions. Oh, yeah, that's the other, Kristen, I saw what you did there. If you do have any questions, we're going to have a couple minutes at the end to answer them. So if you have questions, please post them in that final column, and then we'll know what is important to you that we can address when we come back. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and send you on your way to your break. Oh, wait, before I do that, Kristen, can you copy and paste the Padlet URL? Put it, no, you already did that. Oh my gosh, look at you.
We share a brain, remember?
We share a brain. So yeah. What you all want to do is go ahead and click on the Padlet before I send you to the breakout room, because otherwise that link, the chat goes away. So go ahead, take a minute and click on that, and then I'll send you to your breakout room.
One person said they had to drop out, so I was just going to put, why do you keep moving people?
Well, because I'm
make it one room.
I'm trying to move people because I thought it was automatically putting them in there, but then it didn't. So now I'm trying to get 3 people in one room and 2 people in another.
It looks like you succeeded. And so you could also just kind of.
I know that was a little hair. I'm not sure.
It's all good.
I'm gonna pause the recording.
Okay. Okay. Oh, room 2 is having a good conversation. They don't want to come back yet.
I know. Welcome back.
They'll get kicked out in 30 seconds. I always tell my grad students, like, they come back from their breakouts and they're all like, and they're laughing, they're on camera, and they're all happy, and then it goes dark. I'm like, man.
You mean they
No,
turn
like,
off the
they all just-
camera or something?
yes,
Is that what you mean by the, yeah.
Yes. I'm looking at like all these happy people who just have great conversation, and then they're like, oh, teacher's back. But I hate, like, anytime I try to go in their breakout rooms with them, they get all weird too. Like,
You know, I think the same thing, and I would too, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Like the teacher watching. All right, room 2 is back as well. Welcome back, room 2.
For sure. Okay, I think, hi, I think we have everyone back. I know that wasn't a ton of time. That was altogether about 6 minutes. So I hope that you had some really lively and interesting discussion. We also realized that you probably didn't have much of a chance to both talk about things and get things on the Padlet. So what we would love to do is sort of open it up, since it's such a small group, and ask you to tell us about one of your discussion points or key takeaways that you got away from the discussion with your partner. Would anybody be willing to sort of take themselves off mute and give us a sense of what you discussed, what you learned?
And I did give everyone permission to take their microphone off this time. I fixed that.
Yeah, Lorraine. Can you take, are you able? Okay, good.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm first of all, I'm sorry about my English. I'm still learning. But
are you German?
No, I'm from Chile.
Oh, that's oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm actually now
name.
on video asking such a ridiculous question, and she already put that on in the chat. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Lorraine. My apologies.
No, don't worry. I was going to say that I just got the last name from the Germans because I'm not tall. I don't have blue eyes. Just the last name.
I see.
Not that good. Okay, but me and Susan, we added some reflections. So I would like her to unmute too, so she can help me with the explanation of them. But we started with the first question, and we think the framework, all of the framework concepts are really important, but I think it's important to start with digital safety first. It's like a really important thing to teach in schools, like by anyone. So that was.
Yeah, was there a particular aspect of digital safety, or is there, and this is for anyone really, is there a particular aspect of safety that you think is most important to lead with? Or when you think about just keeping kids safe online or helping kids keep themselves safe online, what just jumps out at you?
Well, Leanne, this is Suzanne. I don't have my camera on because I'm homesick right now. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, Suzanne. Suzanne and I have known each other for very many years.
Many years. And we kind of, our conversation around that started out, and I said, it just kind of jumped out to me as I was looking at the framework today that digital safety is the first thing in the framework. And what popped out to me was teachers that aren't real familiar with digital citizenship, who are afraid to teach some of the concepts, or that they could wrap their minds around digital safety. It's more of a comfort zone, even though we know that whole thing with safety and rules and all that has changed over time. It's not anymore a list of don't do this and don't do that, but do this, but think about it first. So
yeah, you know what, Suzanne, that makes a
from.
lot of sense. And what I kind of hear you saying, correct me if I'm interpreting what you're saying, is that for teachers who are less familiar with digital citizenship, digital safety might be a really good entry point for them because they can wrap their head around the importance of internet safety for students in a digital classroom and in a digital world. Like, it would be an easy way to pull them in and say, we've got to do this.
Yeah, and then they can be better prepared to do things like being socially responsible and, you know, those kinds of things that are.
Yeah. Do you think, Suzanne, Lorraine, anybody really, that we could teach internet safety at the same time as we're teaching the other concepts? Like, could we teach safety as we're teaching social responsibility, or would you tend to think of it more as a prerequisite? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious what people are thinking.
Good food for thought question.
We don't have to answer it.
We'll leave that.
We are limited on time, and we don't want to keep you too much, and we do have a wrap up, but is there anybody else who is willing to share a key takeaway from your discussion?
And thank you for those that added some things in the Padlet too.
One of the things I've been thinking about, hi, this is Rachel. One of the things I've been thinking about is how do we continue to kind of push down in grade levels? So we used to have okay, here we're going to go through our acceptable use policy and make sure that we understand what's in there. And I see that you have that in grades 2 and 3. How do we create an acceptable use policy that a second grader and a third grader can understand by eliminating the legal jargon and making it in student-friendly language?
Yeah, and maybe there's 2 versions, right? Maybe there's even a photo version for our littlest ones to understand. And that goes to that whole culture, right? The whole system, not just what's happening in the classroom, those lessons. It's a good thought. I love that.
I mean, I think that speaks to the whole nature of what we talk about with developing this culture. Like, how could we expect not only students who are young, but even high school students, and by the way, even teachers, to understand an acceptable use policy that's really only legalese? How could we expect that? In fact, we were working with a district last year, a group of teachers who were developing digital citizenship skills. And I had asked the teachers if they were familiar, or I wanted them to analyze their district's AUP. Out of the 20 teachers I was working with, only 2 of them knew how to find the AUP.
Yeah. Like,
so
where's it even
it's a good question. It's a good question that we all have to think about. Okay, it's right at the top of the hour, and we have just a couple minutes left to wrap up. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen.
Yeah, so we would love to keep in touch with you. This was really just an introduction to some of the work that Leanne and I do. You got that link earlier for teachdigcit.com. I'd encourage you to take a look at a couple of the other buttons. We have a pretty extensive catalog of professional development opportunities that we do with districts, regional offices of education, all of your different folks who offer PD will come and hang out with them. So feel free to pass our catalog on. If you're a Twitter user, we would love for you to connect with us there. And you can also join our email list. We don't email as much as we should, so we will not clog up your inbox, I promise. But whenever we have fun, exciting new things to share, we like to share them with the people who care about this work too. Finally, Leanna and I have just released a self-paced course that really takes this framework and does a pretty good deep dive into looking at how it can be utilized to create lessons and learning opportunities with students. And it is a completely self-paced course that our test users have said takes around 6 hours to complete. And
Suzanne was actually one of our beta testers
yeah,
for the course, so she could tell us how long it actually took her to take the course.
and she gave us a lot of great feedback. So that course is open for enrollment now, and it can be joined by individuals, or we've got discounts for large groups if you want to pass that information on to other teachers in your district as well. So all ways that you can keep in touch with us. We will also be sending out a recording of this email this webinar in the next few days. So keep an eye out for that. And I think that is all we have for you
I
this
think
evening.
that's it, although we are both willing to stick around for another 2 or 3 minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful night. We thank you for coming. We thank you for participating, and we thank you for caring about digital citizenship, because it's so near and dear to our heart, and we love speaking with other people who are also interested and passionate about the same topic. So have a wonderful night, or please feel free to stick around and chat with us or ask a question.